Hello and welcome to this video where we will be exploring a unique basing or unit filler idea leveraging just leftover sprue parts from your kits. In this scenario I'm using items from my Demons of Khorne sprues, but you can use the same parts from other kits that come in these arrangements. This will also form part 1 of a series of videos building out a Khorne Demons army for all Warhammer game systems. But for now, let's begin. So here we can see the sprue that I have, and what I'm going to do is leverage these cone and cup shaped parts to create a sort of blood chalice. However, you could also make something like torches or other items from these parts depending on the theme that you're going for. Now to cut these out, I'm using a small saw blade as shown here to try and get a flat cut. Trying to use clippers on sprue parts this thick would likely just result in bending the plastic, so I advise using some sort of saw or sharp knife to slice through the bits. Afterwards I simply sand down the edges that I cut to get them as smooth as possible. Sticking our two parts together like normal here, and we can see how it starts to come together to form the item we want. It's a little bit hard to show without gluing them, but I believe you could also invert these items to form a sort of lamp item shape, which could be interesting if you're trying to do something different like elven scenery or something like that. Here I have the 4 of them cut out and glued, and you may be able to get a cleaner finish than me with some better tools and accuracy, but considering I'm going for rugged demon stuff, it's matted a little bit less, and once you paint them up, any small gaps are not very noticeable either. So we'll join these to the base now, and you'll want to hold it in place for some time given the connection of the joint is not a large surface area. If you're adding mud or snow around the base like I am, you can pull more around these to give a little bit more of a solid foundation. However, all mine have ended up quite sturdy in the end. With all 4 of these on now, as you can see, later I do actually go and replace 1 or 2 to align the 4 of them a little bit better, and I suggest actually marking out the place to glue each one versus just eyeballing it like I've tried to do initially. Next we'll need the altar piece or the stone tablet piece for the floor. To do this we'll take the round sprue part out and leave the stems under it to act as legs for the table. I just clip off any of the excess parts we don't need on the top and on the bottom. I get that glued on now, and again in hindsight you could actually glue this part in before the goblets to make life slightly easier. Either way though, you can see how it's come together with some simple pieces of sprue. We've been able to create the core of a nice little base or unit filler. Now let's take a look at some of the extra parts I have left over from my Khorne Crushers and Bloodmaster kits that I won't be needing and can leverage now for decoration purposes to really take this idea further. I also take some of the skulls from the Citadel Skulls kit because obviously Demons of Khorne is going to fit in perfectly for me here. With that said, I've gone and glued mine on here like so, and the beauty of this is I can easily create similar ones in different arrangements. A Bloodmaster and a Bloodletter look very similar, so taking one Bloodletter out using this unit filler is going to be a perfect option for expanding an army very fast. But let's move along to painting and basing then. I've started with a grey primer here simply because that's what I have, but any will do for you, and I'm just showing this here so you can see it all a bit cleaner now that it has some paint on it. Throwing down some brown for the wood on the pillars. Go ahead and use any paints you like for this type of work. We will use Mechanicus Standard Grey for the stonework. Game Colour Bone White here for my skulls now. Going for a gold on my goblets because gold will be seen a fair bit across the Khorne range. Also the icon and precious blood can't go in anything else of course, so I also do Leadbelcher for the chain. Now we'll go ahead and apply some simple washes over these base colours. Reichland Flesh Shade on the bone and the gold, Nuln on the stone and chains, and Agrax on the wood. I will do some edge highlights now. Mostly I'm just reusing the same base colour to get that tone back on the edges, and only for the grey did I mix in a bit of the white. Going to hit the rim with the black now because when I add my snow I don't want to accidentally paint my snow when doing that work. Valhallan Blizzard technical paint I'm using for the snow, but of course you do what makes sense for you, and here we can see how that's all looking in place now that it's mostly done.
In order to fill the cups with blood, I'm using Game Color Bloody Red paint, and then I'm using Uhu glue. I combine them with a toothpick and I twirl the toothpick to get a ball shape on my stick. Then I try and wipe it off into the cups. Now it is a little bit tricky, and I end up just using my other hand off camera to unstick a strand from the toothpick, and then I can finally get it into place and maneuver it where we need it to be. With all four done, now it's looking not too bad. It's not perfect, there are better options out there I suspect, but for just mixing some simple glue and paint, this is by far the easiest method we can go with, and you can adjust your paint to get some better results here also. I did want some blood spatter on the stonework, so I simply just did some freehand dabbling, used some Google searches to put something small together. I considered actually flicking on paint off of a brush or other similar techniques that you can find for this, but the risk is getting the scale wrong. You can use something like too much blood or something like that, and for such a small area I think it was just safer to just do some freehand blood stains like you can see here. Final touch, I just darkened down the middle of the blood pools a little, then I put an Ardcoat gloss varnish over them to give it some shine, and then we're at the point where I'm going to call this one done and tabletop ready to go. So I hope you found this a useful video and interesting. I believe there's a lot we can do with the leftover bits of sprue. Always be looking at them and try to catch your imagination like this. In my next videos, we're going to be looking at the process of creating unique non-clone infantry models similar to a previous video I did recently. And then we're also going to be delving into non-standard Khorne Demon paint schemes. So until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.